Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of body language. So that's your posture, the way that you are positioned, and your facial expressions when it comes to your work relationships. So let's get right into it. Body language is something that a lot of people have heard of, and a lot of people understand the importance of it. But a lot of people don't quite get how much depth there is to our body language. So today we're going to unpack some of this, and I'm going to share some tips for you to improve your body language and the way that you're showing up at work, with clients, in meetings, both virtually and in person. Okay? So first thing I want to talk about, general body language, including your posture, really matters from the other person's perspective. Okay? So from our perspective, it definitely matters, and we'll get to that in a second. But just be mindful that it matters more from the other person's perspective, because they are looking at you, which sounds obvious, but they are looking at you and they are getting so much information, even if it's subconscious, from the cues that you're giving with your body, your facial expressions, and your micro expressions. Okay? So understand that your body is giving them so much information, and you want to really master that and tailor it to optimize it for yourself. So the first thing you need to do is you need to understand what position they see you from, okay? If you're having a meeting with someone, most likely they are directly in front of you and they see you directly head on. So making sure that you are positioned squarely towards them matters. Imagine you're trying to have a meeting with someone, maybe even a prospective client, and they're positioned away from you. Their face might be looking at you, but their body language is not. They might be facing the door. They might be looking away from you, and just, how off is that? What does that tell you? It tells you that they're not interested in you and they are interested in whatever that is. And most likely that's the door, because they want to leave. So facing yourself to them makes a major difference. Because again, let's say you forget. Let's say you have a virtual meeting and you have multiple monitors set up, which I'm finding more and more people do. So be mindful of that. If you have multiple monitors, where is your camera positioned and what do they see? Because even if you're trying to have good posture and good facial expressions while speaking to them, if your main monitor is here and the camera is here and they're looking at you sideways, as soon as you slouch even slightly, they see that so much more because of the position that they see you from, okay? So you are looking at them, that's important, but be very mindful of what they see when they are looking at you and optimize it as best as you can so that they're looking at you square on, okay? Just like if you're a leader at work, let's say you're working in an office, you have your office space set up a very specific way. Be mindful of that, because what do your team members, what do your employees see when you are working at your computer? Do they walk in and see you head on? Is your computer or your monitor in a way where they only see maybe your facial expressions, maybe part of your face? Do they see you from the side? Understand that so that you can monitor your own body language to match it and optimize it as much as possible. Because again, if someone sees you from the side and you're slouching and you're stressed and maybe you're even sitting from the side like this, trying to work but stressed out, holding your head, what does that tell them? You might be stressed out, you might be having a bad day, but if someone needs to come in and ask you a question, they're not going to want to, based on the body language that they're seeing from their perspective, okay? So that's the first thing to be mindful of. The second thing to be mindful of is, of course, your own body language and making sure it's conveying the right message that you want it to. So depending on the context, depending on the relationship, you might have a very different, sense of expectations, sense of standards, or, the vibe of the relationship itself might be different. It might be more professional, it might be more serious, it might be more casual. And so you want your body language to mimic that. Whatever the expectations are for the meeting, those expectations are reinforced with your body language. And they're either going to support it or they're going to go against it. And if it goes against it, then you are ruining your own credibility, okay? So let's say you are in a meeting and you're talking to a prospective client and you want to be seen as the expert, the authority, the person that they should make the deal with. But then your body language might be a little bit too casual. You might be leaning too far to the side. You might be, chewing gum or making these expressions with your face and just being a little bit too casual with them when you should be a little bit more reserved and composed. They will pick up on that simply through your body language. Okay? So be mindful of what the expectations are. Be mindful of how you want to be perceived, and then match that with the body language that you're using. So generally speaking, straighter posture, less movement, right? So sitting still, maybe your arms on the desk in front of you, right? Not fidgeting, not moving around too much and changing postures. Being still is a lot more of a serious, professional corporate vibe. Leaning back, scooching over, crisscrossing your legs consistently, right? Maybe even playing with your pen. And these are things that are more casual and may not be seen as, as professional per se, or they may not be seen as serious enough. So let's say you're speaking with a prospective client, depending on the nature of the relationship you want to build. Being more casual can be beneficial if you want to move forward with a more casual relationship. But if you want to maintain very solid professional boundaries, your body language should show that as well. Okay? So now, third thing to be mindful of is your facial expressions. Now, this goes two ways. Number one, being mindful of the facial expressions when you're making while speaking. But number two, and this is what most people overlook, be mindful of your facial expressions while listening, because that matters even more. Okay? When we speak, we naturally make a lot of facial expressions, and that's a good thing. A lot of people try to minimize their facial expressions when they talk because they think it's silly or goofy, or they just don't like the way that they look. Okay? Fair enough. I get that. I do. However, so much of our delivery depends not on the words that we choose, but on how we deliver those words. What are the facial expressions that we make? What's our body language? How is our tone? What emotion are we conveying as we say that thing? Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say I am your manager at work and I'm giving you some feedback on a recent project. Okay, I'm going to give you some good feedback and bad feedback. But let's say I want to be, I'm someone who doesn't like using facial expressions, so I'm trying to minimize that. Okay, how would this feel for you? I wanted to tell you did a good job with the project. I actually really appreciated that you were done ahead of time. I think you did a very good job delegating some of the tasks, and I really like the new additions that you added. But moving forward, I think that this should be done a little bit differently, and I've provided some guidelines for that. How did that feel? What was your emotional reaction to that? Did you feel like I was giving you good and bad feedback, or did it just feel kind of uncomfortable for you? Now, let's say I was giving you feedback again, good and bad, but I wasn't so, rigid with my facial expressions. What would that look like? I wanted to tell you that you did a really good job with this project, and I actually appreciated that you were done ahead of time. So thank you for that. But I noticed that this thing that you did, I don't think it's optimized quite as well. So moving forward, I'd like to do things differently. I've provided you with some guidelines on that so that you can take a look and change it moving forward. How did that feel? What emotions did that evoke in you? How much more of a connection do you feel with me? And how much better, for lack of a better word, do you feel in our relationship when I use my face to supplement the words that I'm saying to you, to add to the message that I'm conveying with my words? Okay? Your facial expressions matter when you speak, so just accept them. You can definitely work on them, right? And I'll give you some tips for that. You can definitely work on your facial expressions, but don't try to take them away entirely because they add so much value to what you want to say. Okay? So if you want to improve your facial expressions, that's where you can be mindful and practice making facial expressions. Okay? So go in front of a mirror, speak naturally in front of a mirror, and just analyze what comes up. Sit down, record yourself, and watch the video back. And just notice it, right? If you notice that you are very expressionate, then maybe you work on being not as expressionate a little bit so that it's closer to what you would like, right? Maybe you notice that you are being expressionate, but you are only expressing the negative emotions. And you're very expressionate when you're a little bit angry, or you look like you're thinking and unsure, and then you notice you don't smile as much. Well, now you know that you can work on having a fuller range of emotions expressed on your face. Okay? But it starts with understanding and the awareness of what you are doing to understand where you would like to be, and mapping out the bridge to get there. Okay. So now that you know that you need to be mindful of your facial expressions, again, the thing that most people really overlook is being mindful of their facial expressions when they are listening. And this matters because to you, from your perspective, you are sitting here and you are listening to the other person, and you are taking in the information that they are giving you, right? So your job is completely different. You're processing what they are saying and giving to you. But from their perspective, they are watching you. They are watching how you react to see how you are feeling about the things they are saying. And again, a lot of this happens subconsciously, but people are still good at picking up on things. So be mindful of your facial expressions, because the facial expressions that you make give clues and cues to how you feel, to what you think, and to how you're reacting to the information you're receiving. Okay? If someone is talking to me, right? Imagine that, again, I've given you feedback. I've told you that I want you to implement these new guidelines. And now you're telling me something, but I'm like this. Do you think I'm listening? Does my face tell you that I'm engaged and I actually care about your opinion to the feedback? Now, what if I was listening to you, but I was going like this? How would that feel? Would you feel like I'm listening? Would you feel like I agree with you? Would you feel like I am glad that you are sharing your opinion with me? Probably not, because my face is telling you I don't want to hear this and I don't approve. Now, what if I was listening to you going like this? You think I'm crazy and I'm mocking you because it doesn't match. Because your facial expressions when you're listening matter. So, again, you first need to understand what facial expressions you are making currently when you are listening, to get an understanding of what other people think when they're talking to you, because it matters. Okay? Fundamentally, it matters because when the other person is speaking to you, and they see your reaction, they see the body language you're presenting, they see the facial expressions that you're making, they are interpreting that information and coming to their own conclusions. And if your body language and facial expressions don't match what you would like it to say about you, there is a disconnect. They will interpret it more negatively than you would like, and that will harm the relationship. Because how easy is it to build rapport? How easy is it to sustain a positive relationship with clients if they think that you disagree, don't like them, don't trust them, etc.? Because you just naturally default to a cranky expression. Do you see how that is harming your relationships? But it is so overlooked by so many people. So get an awareness of what your body language is like. Get an awareness of what your facial expressions are like while you're talking. And again, don't minimize them unless you really have to, because facial expressions add so much value when you speak. And then get an awareness of what you look like when you're listening, because that matters. And that matters for the types of relationships that you want to build. Okay? If you're interested more about the process of listening and active listening specifically, so that you can start to work on some of these behaviors, I have an entire active listening masterclass that I'll link for you down below. So you can go ahead and check that out if you're interested. Okay, so comment down below. Let me know what your biggest breakthrough was and the thing that you're going to try next. So remember, your body language matters, your facial expressions matter. They give so much context to what you're saying. Without body language and without facial expressions, you would be a very boring person to talk to and to listen to. And that's just a fact. So embrace it, but more importantly, use it to your advantage. Okay?